yeah, yeah. I love my life. Ooh, I love my body. Yeah, I love myself. Yeah. Welcome to the Shaft Show, and this is a 50,000 sub special. And we are going to celebrate this with this beautiful Shakti, all the way from Santa Barbara. She's a scholar in Tantra, studied this to its deepest depths. I mean, look at all these books. I mean, she's well read. She's well read. If you want the Encyclopedia of Tantra, it's her. So, babes, introduce yourself.
My name is Maddie, or Mary Isis Shakti Ma Amritam, and my name on Instagram is Tantra Priestess. I'm a Tantra practitioner here in Santa Barbara.
What does Tantra mean to you, babes?
Tantra can be viewed in many lenses, and many say that it cannot be defined, and how can you describe the indescribable? However, I like to look at it from the etymology of the word itself. So Tantra translates to expansion in Sanskrit, so that's how I see it functioning on our consciousness.
In my schools, they said it's something else. It means to weave.
Yeah, it depends, like if you're looking at Tan or Tra.
And then another school said it's to liberate.
There's several definitions depending on the etymology of the word, but yeah, it's all of those. To liberate, to expand, to loom, to weave.
I mean, it all has the same essence in itself, which is to liberate and expand. Weave. Explain that. What does it mean by weaving? Tantra.
I like to look at the word weaving from the concept of the energetics, or the merging of opposites that happens in the process of tantric alchemy, like the Ida and the Pingala, or like the essence of Shiva and Shakti, or the light and the dark. So that's how I see and understand what looming and weaving means.
Who is Ida and Pingala?
Who is?
What is? You mentioned it.
Ida and Pingala is the two channels of Kundalini that moves up from the Kundalini center.
Where's the Kundalini center?
At the Swadhisthana root chakra and the sacral.
Did you like the movement practice we did yesterday, where I slammed the base of our spines together?
Yeah, I definitely felt an opening in my sacral and my Kundalini in that practice, the base of my spine.
So I'm a big fan of just making anything up. Now I come from a long line of people who make things up. It's called advertising. And when I discovered Tantra, it's like, oh wow, everything's the opposite and upside down. Nothing's like, I could relate to it because it's not one thing or the other. Like, I say one thing and I do the other. I feel happy and I'm sad at the same time. And no one ever really understood me. And when it came to discovering a thing called Tantra, I realized everything was the same, but packaged in different ways. It's a bit like, what type of phone do you want? An Apple phone or a Windows phone? It's all connected to the source, the great source that is Wi-Fi. And you could just choose the interfaces that you want to play with. So Tantra was one of my favorite ways because it wasn't rigid. It's more relaxed. It's more fun for sure. But also it allows you to be more creative. It's not this is the way. It's like this is the way, and you can create your own. So yesterday we were lying around, and I felt that our bodies, if you're lying face down like this and I'm got my base of my spine on her like this, the bases of the spine actually touch each other, and I could just like lie on top of you, and there's a channel from the crown of her head all the way to the base of her spine, and from the base of my spine all the way to the crown of my head. And I could feel this like elongated like energy channel. And I just made up a nice little story about how Shiva and Kali were fighting for centuries, and then one day they rested after a long fight, and then they rested in this position, and the heavens and the hells united for one whole day, where the two fighters became lovers, and they rested in this position, aligning heaven and hell for one day of peace. Just turn that into a little story.
There's a lot of, philosophies as well as mythologies in the realms of the studies of Tantra, and there's also a lot of practical practices. And I think a lot of the practical practices that come from the ancient traditions are more hard to find, I think. They're not as easily accessible as some of the mythologies and stories around Tantra. So there are a lot of physical and energetic practices working with the body, and these can be practiced and found in different locations. However, a lot was also passed down through oral tradition, and a lot has been lost, burned, banished as far as what they actually practice, but you still can find some of these practices in the text. And of course, there's always room to find and discover, play around with the body and with these practices, and working with tantric energy in different ways. And so I feel like we were just discovering like the way different parts of the body and the nooks and crannies can connect. So like the sit bones can like lock and nook into the sacral quite easily.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a connection there. And when working with the body or just intuitive type of body work, it's fun to play around with the nooks and crannies in that way. And
what's the weirder practices? You mentioned fingers up the bum, some anal practices. What have you discovered in these sacred books?
I was actually reading my Yoga and Kriya book by Swami Satyananda Saraswati. And this is actually a book on Kriya. I didn't expect to find any Tantra practices in here. However, they actually have several distinctions on Kriya and Tantra, yoga.
What is the difference between a Kriya practice and a Tantric practice?
Kriya means action, so they're not as separate as you would think, and actually there's a lot of convergence in the practices of yoga, Tantra, and Kriya. They are all interconnected and working together. So you can do it's like sadhana, like daily practice, daily actions to invoke and work with tantric energy. So however, tantric practices often incorporate, I would say, more sexual practices, and Kriya not as much, but you could still do a tantric sexual practice and it be considered a Kriya. So anyway, I don't remember what page it was on, but I was just flipping open. That's how I like to read books, as like an oracle sometimes. And I found some practices working with the anal sphincter to relax the anus. You just working with your finger and working with the Muladhara. There's a lot of different practices with the Muladhara to relax and work with, the sexual organs or the
I need to
anal
relax my
sphincter.
ass, babes. Where is this? This is important.
There's a lot in this book. I was also
About ass relaxation.
very interested
Sex.
in.
I saw sex organ. Sex organ. Kriya practice.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
I mean, it's all very very similar to what we do anyway.
Yeah, and I was also reading about bindus and sex, and it talks about the red and the white bindu and how it connects to our menstruation and ejaculation.
Ooh.
And you can work with
What is a bindu?
the red bindu. It's the center point
center point. What does that mean?
Well, it can be a center point of activated energy. So when you're receiving darshan in an Indian temple, you see the red bindu often on the Ajna chakra as
keep them focused on the third eye.
Yeah, a blessing of the third eye. However, you can actually place a bindu at any point in the body as a point of center, an energetic center. So, yeah, can work with the red bindu when working with sex as well.
What is your most favorite go-to practice when it comes to Tantra?
I often, when I'm working with my clients, work with the Muladhara chakra, because that's where our Kundalini energy sits. And so when working with Tantric energy and the practice of sublimation, we like to start at, the lower chakras, so the Muladhara, the Swadhisthana, and sublimate the energy up the body so that we can move into more higher capacities of tantric energy moving in the body and allowing it to feed all parts of the body rather than it being all ejaculatory or genital focus. So I found that working with the Mula Bandha is a great practice for practicing sublimating sexual energy just through the breath. It can also be a precursor to then applying these principles in sexual engagement, sexual encounters, tantric erotic massage, where we're beginning to start to work with the sexual organs. So
can you guide us through a little practice so everybody at home and I myself could learn something?
Yeah. Okay. So for those who aren't familiar with Mula Bandha or any of the bandhas, this could also be considered a kriya as well, since we are talking about the distinction of what kriya means. But so anyway, the Mula Bandha translates to root lock. So the idea of the bandhas is that we're locking in the energy in our body at different places in the body. So there's lots of different bandhas. So with the Mula Bandha, we're working with our root chakra. So for men, it's the perineum, and for the women, it's the cervix. And so
you lock your cervix?
Yeah, it's a subtle energy that takes some practice to find.
I was going to say, that's some isolation technique right there.
Yeah, bandhas get really subtle to find these spaces in the body and really work with them. It can take practice to really find how to lock your cervix for a woman. And if this is challenging, you can also just practice working with your perineum or just your lower vaginal region. But if you want to get really nuanced and technical, beginning to work with your cervix is the most technical way to work with your Muladhara. So for everyone watching, you'll just sit in meditation position.
Oh, let's do it. Everybody join in.
Making sure that you're rooted and grounded into the earth and your spine is tall and erect. And when you find that comfortable posture, you'll just squeeze your perineum or your cervix. And for both the inhale and the exhale, we'll keep it tight and held. And so as we do this and as we begin our breaths and our inhales, we're really focusing on bringing the Kundalini energy up from the base of our spine and feeding it into all parts of our body, all the way up to our third eye and crown or our heart. And so we'll begin our breath, just inhaling in through our nose, pulling up this energy, keeping it locked and tight and held. Exhaling, keeping it tight and held, just activating the center. And as you do this, just become observant, become a witness of the subtle energies at play. Usually I feel a fire in my Swadhisthana. I feel a more activated chi rather than just like a regular breath. Often I feel the the chi in my fingertips, the prana. So we're just moving the sexual energy up from our base chakra into our higher chakras, activating our sexual organs, beginning to connect our breath with our sexual organs. It's really important that we're just keeping our Mula Bandha tight and held. So the idea is that we're not expelling any of the energy out of our root when we exhale, but we're keeping it tight and held in our body so that the sexual energy actually compounds rather than expels. So it's much more activating. How do you feel?
Ooh, locking the Mula Bandha for that long, it's an interesting concept. I'm used to pulsing.
Pulsing is another great way as well. Yeah. It's like milking the energy up.
So there's many ways to reach enlightenment, everybody. So I have to like untrain myself to try a new method. There's like a lot of mind perineum connection and figuring that out. So yeah, apart from that, there was like subtle energies rising up. At the beginning, there's a lot. Then it started to fizzle into just being pleasurable.
Yeah. So that's the practice that I like to share with my clients when just working and beginning with tantric energy with our breath and our sexual organs, and then I like to apply those principles in the lingam massage at the point of before orgasm, so that my clients can practice sublimating and moving the sexual energy up the body so they can have much more full body experiences and releases as we learn to have sexual mastery over our energy and channel it up into our entire body rather than it being all genitalia focused.
I'm in America and I'm seeing this word David Data popping up in your library, from intimate commune and dear lover. And it's been something that I've noticed a lot, and I've mentioned it a lot on my Instagram channel around polarity. What are your thoughts on polarity, babes? Because everyone knows I don't believe in it. Well, it's not I don't believe in it, it's like such a tiny part of my practice. Like, it's a sentence and then I carry on with my life. Whereas it's really big here, and I feel it's causing more divide and more harm than good. As in, it's adding to more separation and expectation on the way women expect men to behave.
Yeah. Yeah, so I feel that, there is inherently polarity energetics that exist within the universe of everything. But I think that we have gendered it so greatly, and I don't think that was necessarily its intention.
I don't think we're all meant to go to war over religion either.
So yeah, there's of course like an energetic polarity, and I think a lot of people have learned to understand it through the masculine and the feminine energetics. However, just like the essence of Shiva and Shakti, they are inseparate. So we have Shiva and Shakti within us both, and they have an interplay and a dance, when we engage with other people. And so I don't think that, I just believe that we have both of these energetics inside of ourselves, and actually true tantric union is when these have merged completely and in us. So, yeah, I think in the modern world and through authors like David Data, who, is a well-known scholar in the realms of intimacy and polarity, I think that his teachings are good to understand some parts of intimacy and how it works and functions with the masculine and the feminine. But I think it's become, a lot of modern polarity has become like too hyper-focused on masculine and feminine, as if like...
I mean, they're forgetting that the main bit, which is like we're meant to have both aspects within ourselves.
Right.
It's
I've actually noticed too, so many people want divine union with the masculine and the feminine. And I've noticed, like, you're talking about expectation of the man, and when we have expectations of the man, it actually creates separation, not union.
Yeah.
And so you're not actually loving them for like who they are and where they are.
You're just shaming them for what they should be because you saw it on Instagram. It's what I'm seeing out there. It's a disaster.
Me personally, everyone likes different things and different people and what they want in romantic partnerships and union. But I personally connect most to men who have very embodied feminine and masculine energies, like very present.
For me, I like really powerful Amazonian women who could beat the shit out of me. So that's my vibe. Strong powerhouse women. Oh, just like my mommy. So another question. Now, I have not read a book about Tantra. I read one. It took me 3 years. Barbara Carello's Urban Tantra. Then I just looked if she did a certification, and I went to her and got my certification. I admire people who read. I'm just overwhelmed by all of this tower of books. Now, you must have so much information inside of this beautiful little head of yours. Have you read, I see the Sophia Code. I remember one of my lovers obsessed by the Sophia Codes. I told 50 million people to read the Magdalene manuscripts, which I have not read. Only because during this, like, the golden age of Tantra, when Layla Martin was studying in Agama and all of us were like, out there in the esoteric realms of reaching enlightenment through sex, Mary, the book, the Magdalene manuscripts, was a really big deal. Have you read that?
Yeah, I have it in my esoteric library.
Is it any good, and shall I bother reading it?
So, yeah, what I think about...
Can you tell us about it so I don't have to read it?
Sure. I mean, there's...
And why did it propagate through me?
These are great questions. I think to really get the whole essence, you should read it for sure. But I would say that, a lot of people ask me, like, what is the relevance of Mary Magdalene and, like, what does she mean? Especially, like, why are so many tantrics interested in Mary Magdalene when she
was a prostitute?
She's a symbol of, Christianity. She was originally, like, in the Bible, one of the 12 apostles, the only female apostle. The church created these stories around her being a prostitute because she was holding 7 demons in her body that, Jesus or Yeshua, like, cast out of her. So there was all these...
exorcism, or as I like to call it, a sexorcism.
They took a lot of the scriptures around, like, him not wanting to touch her around, that she's, like, dirty and sinful and a prostitute, but actually the church has further acknowledged that she was not a prostitute, and actually, has even created Magdalene Feast Day in the last decade to honor her.
To apologize that she's not a whore. What is she then, if she's not a prostitute?
Well, on the book cover of the Magdalene manuscripts, there's actually an image of an Egyptian temple wall hieroglyph of
Yes.
like two hands being held, which is an image taken from the temple of Isis and Osiris holding hands. And under the title of the book, it says the alchemies of Isis and Osiris. And so some say that Mary Magdalene is a priestess of Isis, that she, walked the lands that had the temples of Isis, that she was a highly trained initiate of Isis. And so some say that she also initiated Yeshua in these practices, that they initiated each other, so they
Where
had
did
a
he
divine
learn?
union.
I know the story from my training around old Mary Maggers, but where did Jesus learn? Or did Mary take him, this young man? Because there's a whole chunk of his life missing. Jesus was tantric, is what I said.
Yeah, some say that he also walked and did pilgrimages in different lands.
Yeah, and walked all the way down to Egypt, and they studied for 30 years with Mary Magdalene in divine union in the Isis temples. And then once they became fully tantric, fully enlightened, fully rebellious, because tantra is a rebellious path, then they came back, and then his story begins.
So, yeah, the book is really just about union. And so the teachings of union have dated across all times, all lineages. Tantric, yoga, the word itself means union. Even just the mythologies of Isis and Osiris, or Shiva and Shakti, or Mary Magdalene and Yeshua is just all teaching the same story of tantric alchemy and union. So
you've mentioned tantric alchemy a lot. What is tantric alchemy?
Yeah, so we were talking about what is tantra earlier, and I was explaining it in the perspective of expansion, but in my own words, I see tantra being a process of self-alchemy. That's my own embodied experience of it. So tantric alchemy is also connecting back to the idea of the looming and the weaving, and it's what happens when you practice tantra. There's an alchemy that occurs. Not only you can do this within oneself through connecting with, merging with the divine, merging with these practices, or merging with the beloved. There's an alchemy that happens, especially when you're with a lover and merging at the root. There is an alchemy that happens deeply in sexuality that brings about inner union. Also when connecting with deities, or connecting with just the higher God power that is in all of us. When we're merging with that essence, there is an alchemy that helps us to align to the truth of love, truth, the divine, God. So in my embodied experience, to give you more of a practical explanation of what that means, is just that I when engaging with a lover and we have a deep divine union, and we're merging sexual fluids, we're merging sexual energies, and divine union, sexual union is a representation of the ultimate power of divine creation. A lot can come up, sometimes shadows, sometimes things that are unhealed, or just anything that is not aligned with truth, love, divinity. And so there's an alchemy where you can actually merge into that higher essence of who you are through sex, through sadhana, through working with beloveds. It's just a way to raise consciousness and further refine and actualize.
Yes, I mean, I'm a big believer in healing through pleasure and healing through collective healing, I call it. And we just had somebody in the chats say she just divinely received the book, the Magdalene Manuscript. So please read it for me. I am not a fan of words, even though I teach everybody how to use the right words, from changing I hate my life to I love my life. But for me, when it comes to learning these tantric arts, I love to learn experientially. And I've spent 9 years not studying or anything like that, but I've been sitting in prayer. I've been in active meditations with the beloveds, my lovers, my teachers, my gurus. And we are just in a community where we're not looking at screens, but we're touching one another, we're connecting with one another, and there's a big field, a vortex that's created in certain places around the world where spiritual seekers come and train. It's a bit like if you've seen the first Doctor Strange film, where he goes on this seeking journey. He has a major crisis, like in Doctor Strange, he had a car accident, he couldn't use his hands, he's a genius brain surgeon, very cocky, and then becomes very humble once he finds these esoteric schools, and then he starts to get trained by these masters. And that's literally was the journey of myself and a lot of people in my position, where we were overachievers in the world of the matrix, and then we had our burnout, our breakdown, and we went on our seeking journey. We go to India, we go to Copenhagen, we go to these places where our soul is called, and then we train, and then we do these very disciplined tantric practices. You do it every day. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do one course and then go back home and carry on with my life. What we did was, like, we did one course, then we stayed in the community, and we kept on doing what we learned until we did another course, another guru shows up, and then we start calling in the right teachers. Like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And when you start evolving exponentially through these tantric arts, like, the right teachers just appear. Every time you break through one level, someone says, have you tried this? And you go, there's another level? Oh my God, let's try that. Let's try this, let's try that. So all I did was embody practices. I didn't actually read anything. I still find it difficult to read anything. So what I'm doing, even with business right now, I'm refusing to learn anything. And I'm just hanging around with multi-millionaires and just trying to do what I did in Tantra, which is learn through osmosis, hanging around with like dakinis and priestesses. And like when I'm in the other vortex of like the multi-millionaires, I end up just like hanging around with them, getting their codes, learning through connection, seeing how they speak, seeing how they even drink their coffee, like how present are they. It's like what I've learned from human behavior and studying. I'm like 43 years young. I've been observing humans since I was a little kid. That's one of my things. One of my favorite pastimes is actually sitting in a shopping mall, and that's how I relax my nervous system. I just see how people move. People watching. By collecting that amount of data for all those years, I'm able to tell people, almost a bit like a bitter comedian as well, how fucked up society is, but providing solutions through changing habits, behaviors, inner dialogue, inner monologue, and changing your inner Woody Allen to your inner Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
Through sex.
I am a history nerd, an ancient history nerd, so I love to read, and it keeps me
geek, babes.
it keeps me connected to the past, and
I used to be connected to the past. It's called depression.
I feel like I'm able to connect to these ancient cultures through words, but also like the books that have done countless and countless research on these ancient histories that I feel a soul connection to. And this is also like why I also travel to different regions that I'm called to, and different temples of these ancient cultures. I've been to Egypt, I've been to India, tantric temples, and one thing I can say though is, and you Tantra is not a tantric text. Tantra is a direct experience, and the best way to really learn is through transmission.
Ooh.
And actually, this is how they would do it in ancient history as well. So
Wasn't the main gurus women?
actually, this is something I was reading on today.
When you're sat on your golden throne over there, and I was coughing my lungs out.
A chapter in the book Yoni Shakti was talking about. There's a chapter. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it was asking the question: were women the ones initiating men?
Yes.
And so
I've been trained that this is true. This is true.
It is true, and through time, it's also changed. And I don't know. It also depends like what sex and what lineages you're talking about. But yeah, women did initiate men, and through time, I think men have also wanted to take the feminine for like their own control.
Do you think that these women got too powerful? Because before patriarchy there was matriarchy, and the reason why people take things down is because they believe they found a better system, or the old system just got corrupt. I feel, and I kind of feel it's happening now, that I come from a very matriarchal society. Like, it's just women. Where I've been, and I've mentioned this for almost a decade now, I've only been surrounded by a matriarchal society. The tantric ecosystem is mainly women, and I've seen the power of women. I mean, I had to thrive in that environment. I was a goddess worshipper. Like, I would put women up on these holy grails, these golden thrones, and worship them. Now, they used to do that with kings, and look how they turned out. So I feel that something happened in matriarchy where it got a bit spoiled and it got a bit out of control, that people had to take over and put in a new system called patriarchy. Do you feel that, or have you read that there was a matriarchal society that turned sour?
I haven't read that, but if you just think about it and the idea of how our world has become so industrial just through time, and once we were a lot more connected to nature and the feminine.
We worship something that was real. Do you know what that was? The sun.
I mean, even just that alone reveals the how we have changed, and just looking at the way the mother is being treated. We used to be in a lot more interconnection and reverence, right reverence and right relation with the essence of the mother, the essence of the feminine, the essence of nature itself, and even there was women in the temples. Like, when I went to India, I was on a Shakta Tantra pilgrimage, and I kept wondering, why are there no female priestesses in the temples? These are all being run by male priests, all the pujas. No women at all. And we're in the Shakti temples. Like, where are the women? I'm at the Yoni temple. There's no men. I mean, no women. It's all men. And so I kept wondering, where are the women? And the woman who was holding this pilgrimage was sharing with us a presentation on the Devadasi, which come from Puri. It translates to servant of divine. They were the female priestesses and the dancers that lived in the Puri temple, and these were
the sky dancers that I've heard about.
I'm not sure, but
bikinis.
They're Devadasi.
David.
It translates to servant of divine. And so they committed their whole life to serving the divine. And that was the last lineage. It actually, they were still in the temples just 10 years ago. But I think through the British has affected like Indian tantric culture and the feminine really greatly. And also how they, view sexuality and just certain oppression and things like this. Because even in the presentation, she showed us like, the women wearing saris, they weren't wearing sari tops. They were just had the silks. Like they were much more open with their bodies. And, if you start to dive into these rabbit holes of the tantric sexual practices and things they would do, it's very clear to me that they were less oppressed and more open and more connected to the feminine, to sexuality, and in these ancient times, and through just the history that has happened and on the earth, even in the last 100 years to 2,000 years, a lot has shifted. And so a lot was done through oral tradition, which is also a much more feminine way of teaching. It's through the direct transmission. It's through the experience, like you were talking about too. It's done through guru embodiment, guru transmission, direct experience. So tantra is experiential, and I think that's why it's also so difficult to define, as we were talking about in the very beginning of this live. It's something that's beyond word. It's people try to describe the indescribable, but how can you really describe the feminine quality of nature and existence and tantric energy itself? And so
my teacher said trying to describe tantra is trying to describe to somebody what ice cream tastes like for the first time. Now everybody loves ice cream, but you never really know what it is until you taste it yourself.
Yeah. And so sometimes people, find it through some of their first experiences. Like clients I work with, they'll relay their experience. I always prompt and ask what their experience is after practices, and I can gauge where someone's really at in their felt experience. Some people can achieve it more quickly. Some people are...
How many lingam massages have you given?
I actually was really curious of this number myself a few weeks ago, and I decided to add up all of the money that I've made since practicing Tantra and dividing it by the number of hours of work that I've done to see how many people I've worked with.
And?
I can't remember, but it's somewhere close to 1,000, but not yet. Those weren't all lingam massages, by the way, but a lot of them were.
That's she's busy. She's one of the classic dakinis that I meet in real life who's just look at the table we're on. They're just rolling in cash. So Lakshmi loves her.
Pouring the gold down.
She has a bloody throne right over there. There it is.
It's actually made out of gold. It's
throne.
covered in gold leaf.
Yeah.
It's real 24 karat gold.
Powerful stuff. Now these Shaktis, these Dakinis that I keep on meeting, they're doing the Lord's work. Lord Shiva, that is. And
I am God's wife. I am Shiva's wife.
Parvati. See, look at this little cute Parvati Shakti. So, working with 1,000 clients, in how many years is that? 2?
3.
That's insane. Working with 1,000 clients in only 3 years. What have you learnt from all of those men?
What a great question. I mean, I've learned many things.
I mean, you must have learned about the whole spectrum of humanity. I mean, I've worked with countless clients when it comes to vaginal work with women, and I learned the meaning of life. Like, I would love to know, what have you learned from all the lingams that you've helped heal?
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, there's so many things, but I feel like the first that comes to mind is really just like the how much like subtle contraction people hold within the bodies, within their bodies,
All
and
mine's my ass.
and so many people are. I think it's also a product of the world of how fast-paced we are, and a lot of the men I work with are high-level like CEOs or businessmen, and very fast-paced world, work a lot, and so this is also like shows up in their body, it shows up in sexual experience, and so I'm very sensitive to just the subtle energy of the body and what they're holding, and so it really takes a lot of time for men to just slow down and come into the body and to have like a reframe, and they can really open and receive so much. I think men have to think they have to constantly do, and this even shows up in the lingam massage work. I feel them contracting and trying to push and trying to get somewhere, them looking up or feeling like they need to move their body in a certain way, and then actually as soon as I tell them to like relax and soften and just drop back into their body and allow themselves to receive, they actually receive more when they're not trying. And they're just practicing presence. But there's so many things I've learned. Just how much people really need just slowness and presence, and it seems so simple, but yet so many people aren't taking the time to come deeply into their body and out of their minds. Excuse Shaft here.
So, coming to presence, someone's saying something. Showed another book I have, haha. Round of my first.
I'm growing the greatest esoteric library, so a lot of these books are classic esoteric. They're like
The Lost Gospel.
all my time. I went to India, and that was actually one of my favorite things about going to India bookstores, because it's all like actual original tantric texts, like written by Indian people.
So I'm actually going to be studying the real tantric text. So when I get somebody questioning my heritage, my lineage, I will say I read the real tantric text. What is the name of that? I can't remember. I sent it to you, but it's something, and I'm gonna. It's 112 meditations, and I'm gonna turn them into TikTok reels. That's what I'm gonna.
There's a lot of tantric texts.
Which is the real tantric text?
They're all.
The ultimate tantric text.
There is not just one. There is the tantras.
Is that like the Vedas?
It's like the Vedas or the Puranas. There's the tantras.
Ooh, which are the tantras? Is the Radiant Sutra one of the tantras?
Radiant Sutras is based off a book that could be considered tantric. It's someone taking excerpts and like poems from the story of Shiva and Shakti, or Radha, Krishna, and like the stories of union.
The stories of union. There's a lot of love in all of this stuff, isn't there?
The heart is the key to divine union.
What did you just say?
The heart is the key to
The
divine
heart.
union. Something I've understood in my experiential experience of Tantra, and
Talking of
it's the
love,
center of the chakras.
you have a unique position on love. You have many Shivas. devoted to you. How have you managed this?
Yeah, currently I was praying for Shivas and then they all came at once and now
How many Shivas do you have?
I'm dancing. Right now I would say I'm dancing with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
5 Shiva
Shivas?
dance. Now, women, for some reason, feel that they're only allowed to have one and they'd prefer to just have one. This is clearly not the case for you.
Yeah, well, I've had periods of diving deep in divine union with one Shiva, and that was also beautiful within itself. And also, I find that we were also going into patterns that were not serving liberation, that were not serving truth, and that were actually having us go into traumas.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that in being more open, it actually allows for more room to have healing around what is not based in love. So like for example, I feel like in my deepest and longest partnership, which we're still dancing in now, but we were just completely going down monogamy for 2.5 years and had a lot of pain patterns come up that were not serving. And one of them, a big theme, was jealousy and control and possession. And I feel that it's really easy to stay in that through monogamy and call it love when it's not. Anytime you're perpetuating insecurity, possession, jealousy, control, you're actually contracting and you're coming out of love rather than expanding in love. And
that
so
sounds like David Data. Carry on.
In my experience, like I've found to embody and hold greater love through allowing myself to be open. I'm actually more in secure attachment style in polyamory because it feels more transparent, it feels more authentic, it feels more truthful. I'm able to receive the truth of my partners and receive that. I'm able to just have more relational dialogue that allows us to be more authentic, more vulnerable.
In all these books, I see Sacred Marriages and the Black Madonna, the Book of Lilith, Radical Acceptance, Woman's Anatomy, like Christianity before Christ, the woman in the shaman's body, reclaiming the feminine in the religion and medicine. In any of these books, does it mention women are polyamorous?
I don't actually have.
Is polyamory in any of these
I don't
books?
actually study polyamory in literature.
No, but is it mentioned in any of it? In zero?
In the books that I have, or
in all of the books that you have, is polyamory mentioned?
I don't think so. I don't have any books on that. I don't really study polyamory in literature.
That is interesting.
Yes.
So many books about love and none of them about...
Sacred Marriages are really like that book is talking about more of like the heroes gamos, like the divine union and like Greek and Sumerian culture, which were like ritual practices in the temples between the priests and the priestesses to connect with the divine, or like it's like the marriage to the divine. And so I feel very connected to the Heroes Gamos path. I feel very connected to the Hemet Neter, which is an Egyptian word for God's wife, or just like the word David Dasi, which means servant of the divine, or doula in Greek, which means servant. Like all of these words that mean to be married to the divine. Like that is my essence. Like that is what I want to uphold upon any relationship. And so
is this why you have a secure attachment style?
Yeah, because I'm in full trust and surrender to the path of the divine. So as long as I'm holding and anchoring that closeness with myself, I trust where I'm being led, and I'm only on the path of expansion, trying to expand anything that's taking me out of the essence of love, of the essence of truth. And so, yeah, I mean, I find that more accelerated and more true recently on the path of polyamory. May I dive into monogamy again? Who knows? You know, I don't really like to define it, but
I'm sure your partners would like to define it.
I do find masculines have a hard time.
Well, dudes are pretty simple.
With being penetrated by multiple men. It's a trigger.
It's a trigger. Well, it depends on your environment, I believe. Like, I thrive in certain environments, and in other environments I don't. I find love and wealth, health and abundance and community like that in places, and some places I don't. I guess this is why I keep on moving, to find that sense of belonging and purpose. Which also means I am moving on. I'll be going to Miami tonight, and I saw a vision during a powerful psilocybin assisted tantric blowjob that I was gonna either live in LA or Miami. So I'm going to Miami tonight to find out if that vision's gonna come true. My dick has literally taken me around the world. I love it. It's a 9-year journey, gonna be 10 years next year. So any last words of wisdom for the people of the Shaft Show?
Just continuing practicing presence, practicing love, practicing tuning into awareness. That's all I can really say.
Is there one exercise that you could give them that will make them more present?
The breath. I found the breath and presence are intrinsically linked. Anytime you feel your mind straying, wandering, analyzing, falling somewhere else, you can use the breath to come back into the body, come back into your felt experience of sensation, of awareness, and subtle energy.
And as everyone knows, I'm going through my financial awakening. This is my 3rd awakening. Any advice that you would like to give the people of the Shaft Show audience on how to make giant chunks of wealth come into your life? How have you done it?
You have to believe. You have to trust.
I mean, we just have like shitloads of cash just flying around it. It's great.
Trust fall into the universe. That's been an initiation within myself with God, really, is just having to, like, I came to Santa Barbara with nothing. If you know anything about Santa Barbara, it's one of the richest areas in California, maybe the U.S. And yeah, it's a very like kind of bougie city, and you know, a lot of people logically would not think to move here with nothing and make it work. And actually, my life has never been normal in that sense, and I just completely fell into the universe. I built my business from nothing, and it's just refined, and I, you know, went from 0 to triple income. So really, yeah, taking on more responsibility and taking on things that I really desired allowed actually like more money to come in. But anytime I feel myself like stooping low or having another abundance initiation and needing to break through and make more money, I just go into meditation and do like affirmations, like, you know, the clients who are ready to receive my work are coming to me now. And I just like believe it, and I just trust it, and I release attachment to it. I release stress around it, and usually actually that shifts pretty greatly, especially if you're doing it in like a sex magic practice. But you don't even have to do it in working with sexual energy. You can just work with it in regular meditation. But yeah, abundance, you just gotta invest in things that make you feel abundant, and abundance comes.
It's true. She's living proof. Living proof. And thank you so much for this beautiful celebration of 50,000 followers on Instagram and sharing your journey and story around Tantra. Super appreciated. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Tantra Priestess on Instagram.
We'll be putting a link down there. And everybody watching, make sure you like and subscribe and turn on your little notifications. Every single like is really like so much gratitude for the likes and subscribing. 50,000 people have been watching the Shaft Show. We were at a point where I had 20 million people viewing my channel, which was amazing, and I super appreciate that. Let's keep moving forwards. If you want to learn more about Tantra, check out tantrawithshaft.com/God. If you're a penis owning human, I have the cure for erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, porn addiction in my online course for 1 month training for men. If you're a woman and you want to understand your female anatomy, check out Yoni Mapping, tantrawithshaft.com/mapping, which is all about the female anatomy, and it's a higher level, more practical version of the erotic blueprint. I actually guide you through an online course on how to navigate. How do you like your breast to be touched? What type of touch do you like? What type of touch do you like on the outside of your yoni, inside of your yoni? Where's your G-spot? Where's your A-spot? How to make someone squirt with your Anubis. There's all these beautiful techniques that you could learn where you actually get it's like the Anubis, where you could actually make anybody orgasm, make yourself orgasm, but also, most of all, as a woman, you learn how to communicate your desires to your man. And I got so many online courses, so please check out the link below. Everything I've learned on my almost decade of tantric activation, I've condensed it into online courses. Like I said, I'm not a reader. I don't do theory as much, but I do practical exercises. So all of my workshops are practical exercises. You do the exercises and you will reach enlightenment. It's just inevitable.
Sadhana is the best way to receive tantric initiation.
So thank you, we love you, and we set you free, and thank you for joining us on this beautiful journey. Namaste, namaskar.